The man who slept for 200 years. The beginning of an American legend one morning. You woke up to find that your entire world was gone. The people you knew, the home you built, even your own name. Now just a story told by strangers. This isn't a science fiction movie or a time travel experiment. This is the story of a man who supposedly fell asleep before America became America and woke up to find a nation reborn, the legend of Rip Van Winkle. A man who slept through a revolution and became the symbol of a nation caught between its past and its future, a world on the edge of change. The story begins in the quiet shadows of the Catskill Mountains, in what was once the Dutch village of Tarrytown, New York. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the hum of crickets, a place where time itself seemed to move slower, a peaceful, sleepy world untouched by the storms of politics and war. Here lived a simple, kind-hearted man named Rip Van Winkle. He wasn't rich, nor was he ambitious. He was the kind of man who'd rather help a neighbor fix a fence than work on his own. He loved the outdoors, the trees, the mountains, the quiet escape from the noise of daily life. But to some, Rip was too easygoing, especially his wife, Dame Van Winkle, who was known for her sharp tongue and unending complaints. She wanted Rip to be more responsible, more ambitious, more focused on their farm and family. But Rip, he preferred the company of his dog, Wolf, and the laughter of village children who adored his gentle heart. In many ways, Rip Van Winkle represented the old world, a man content with simplicity, living in harmony with nature. But around him, the world was beginning to stir. Whispers of rebellion, change, and revolution were sweeping through the colonies. The United States of America was about to be born, but Rip had no idea his life was about to change forever. The mysterious journey into the mountains one autumn day. Tired of his wife's constant scolding, Rip grabbed his rifle, called for his dog Wolf, and wandered deep into the Catskills, further than he had ever gone before. The sun dipped behind the peaks, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. The forest grew dense and silent. Even the birds seemed to pause, as if holding their breath. As Rip sat down to rest, he heard something strange echoing through the valley. The sound of distant thunder. Or perhaps drums. Then, through the mist, he saw a man climbing toward him, bent under the weight of a heavy keg. The man's clothes were old-fashioned, like something from another century. Without a word, the stranger gestured for Rip to help him carry the keg. Rip, ever the helpful soul, agreed. They climbed higher and higher until they reached a hollow in the mountain, a hidden glen surrounded by ancient trees and ghostly fog. And there, Rip saw them, a group of men dressed in antique Dutch clothing playing a solemn game of 9 pins, their faces stern, their eyes fixed on their game. Each time the pins struck, the sound rumbled like distant thunder. These were no ordinary men. Their silence, their clothes, their presence felt like something out of another world. The stranger motioned for Rip to serve them from the keg, a dark, strong-smelling liquor. Rip hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him. He took a small sip, then another, and another. The world around him began to blur. The laughter of the players faded into the hum of the wind, and soon, everything went dark. The awakening. When Rip opened his eyes, the sun was already high. His head throbbed and his limbs felt stiff. He looked around. The glen was empty. No strange men, no keg, no sound of thunder. Only silence. He tried to rise, but his joints ached like an old man's. His rifle was rusty, his clothes tattered, and his dog Wolf nowhere to be found. Confused, Rip stumbled down the mountain trail, the same one he had climbed the night before. But something felt off. The trees seemed older, the path more overgrown. Even the village, when he finally reached it, looked unfamiliar. The houses had changed. New names hung over the doors. Children he didn't recognize played in the streets, and the faces of the townspeople were strangers to him. When Rip tried to greet them, they looked at him with confusion, some even fear. His beard had grown a foot long, his voice cracked, and his clothes looked like they belonged to another century. Rip asked about his friends, Nicholas Vedder, Bram Dutcher, Van Bummel the schoolmaster. But the names meant nothing to anyone. The men were gone, long dead or forgotten. Panic began to grow in Rip's chest. He ran to his home, only to find it in ruins. The windows shattered, the roof caved in, and the garden overrun with weeds. The world he knew was gone. and in its place stood a new one. Louder, faster, more restless. The signboards now bore the face of George Washington, not King George. Rip's heart pounded. "What is this?" he whispered. "What's happened to my country?" The village of strangers. When Rip finally found someone old enough to remember, he learned the truth that struck him like lightning. He had been asleep for 20 years. 20 years ago, when Rip had gone into the mountains, America was still under British rule. Now it was a free nation. The revolution had come and gone. The world had changed, and Rip had slept through it all. He was a ghost in his own lifetime and a man out of time. His wife, Dame Van Winkle, had died years ago. His friends were gone. Even his dog, Wolf, had long vanished. But among the faces of strangers, Rip saw one glimmer of recognition. His daughter, now grown, with children of her own. She took him in, and the villagers, after hearing his strange tale, began to speak of him with awe and wonder. Some said he had been bewitched by spirits of the old Dutch explorers. Others claimed he had fallen under a mountain spell, a punishment for his laziness, or perhaps a gift from the gods of sleep. Whatever the truth, Rip Van Winkle became a legend, the man who slept through a revolution and woke up in a new world, the birth of an American myth. The story might sound like fantasy, but it's more than just a bedtime tale. Because behind Rip's sleep lies something deeper, something that spoke to every American who heard it. When Washington Irving published Rip Van Winkle in 1819, America itself was still young. The revolution was over, but the nation was struggling to define its identity, torn between old traditions and a new, uncertain future. Rip Van Winkle wasn't just a man who overslept. He was a symbol of America's innocence, its lost past, and its uneasy awakening into modernity. He represented the old colonial world fading away and the birth of something entirely new. Through Rip's story, Irving gave Americans something they desperately needed, a shared mythology. A story that said, "We have our own legends now. We don't need to borrow them from Europe." The timeless meaning of sleepin'. A deeper sense, Rip's long sleep reflects a universal truth, how quickly time moves and how fragile memory is. It's a warning about complacency, about letting the world pass by while we rest in comfort. But it's also a dream, a wish to escape the noise and return to simplicity. Even today, the image of Rip Van Winkle sleeping beneath the Catskills still captures the American imagination. He's the man who paused time while history marched on, the dreamer who lost everything, yet somehow found peace in the loss, because in the end, Rip didn't wake to anger or regret. He woke, smiled softly, and said, "Everything has changed, but the mountains, they still stand." And maybe that's the lesson. Empires rise and fall, wars come and go, but nature endures. The mountains that cradle our dreams remain the same, long after we are gone. In the next part, we'll uncover the real history behind Rip Van Winkle, the mind of Washington Irving, the birth of American folklore, and the mystery of why this story still feels alive 2 centuries later.